Today's notes will be on drainage patterns. You can see the 4 types of drainage patterns in this picture. They're dendritic, radial, rectangular or annual, and trellis. Drainage patterns are pretty much just the way the water is going to flow off of a landscape. So yesterday we talked about mountains, plateaus, and plains, and the way that water will run off of these is all different. And the reason for that is because drainage patterns really depend upon what is the rock type or bedrock structure and the different types of elevations. So is water going to run off very quickly, or is it just kind of hang around like it would on a plain? Are the rock types going to be easily weathered and eroded and allow water to pass through, or is it going to be a little bit harder? And like I said again, the 4 types are radial, dendritic, trellis, and annual, and we're going to go through each of them here together. So the first one we'll talk about is radial. Again, if you look at the landscape here, like if we had a volcano or a dome or a mountain of any kind with steep slopes and the peak in the center, water is going to flow off of that mountain. So if water, like rain or something, is flowing down on this landscape, the water is going to flow off of the sides in all of these directions. So if we were to look at this area from an aerial view, or from, like if we were in an airplane looking down, we would see that this would be our drainage pattern. Okay, so when we ask you to match up the landscape with the drainage pattern, this is what you're looking for. This is your landscape, this is a mountain, and this is your drainage pattern. It's flowing through off the mountain in all these directions. The next type is dendritic. This is typically in a plains region or a very flat area, and water is going to branch out. This is also known as like a branching drainage pattern. So again, here's your landscape. It's very flat in that plain region. If we were to look at that aerial view, this is your drainage pattern. So water is going to branch out in all different directions, just like roots on a tree, and it's going to kind of flow down. So if we were looking here, water is just going to flow in all of these directions out. So if water was, raining here, we would see this drainage pattern if we were looking at that aerial view. The trellis, or the rectangular pattern, this is when water is going to flow off of a plateau. Water is going to seep into areas of faulted, which is broken rock, or folded, which is bent rock. So we can see that in this area here we have higher levels of elevation here, but then we have the lower levels in between. So if we have rain falling on this landscape, the water is going to flow down into these patterns and flow in the low-lying areas. So this would be our drainage pattern here. Again, you're just matching where would the water flow off of that particular landscape. And you can easily see the shape of this landscape within the drainage pattern itself. The last one is called annular. If we look here, if we had an igneous intrusion breaking through sedimentary rock, right here, this is your igneous intrusion, if you remember those symbols from our rock unit. So everything I colored in red there is our igneous intrusion. The sedimentary rock is off to the side here. So this sedimentary rock was broken down, your intrusion breaks through, and you're kind of left with these circular shapes on top. And then that's what this drainage pattern is going to look like. This occurs in an eroded dome, like that volcanic dome, because the intrusion is there. And this usually doesn't occur too much, so you're not going to see it as much, but make sure you can recognize this drainage pattern as this annual look. So now that you know the 4 types, we'd like you to just be able to recognize these drainage patterns and what landscapes they match up to. So we want to know which one would likely happen at a volcano. So pause your video and make your choice. The correct choice should be answer choice B. If you look here, all of this water is moving out away from the center point, which would be the peak. Remember, A is this annual look. That would be from the eroded dome. C is the trellis or rectangular look, and D is your dendritic look. The next one here as practice, we want you to look at this drainage pattern and determine which landscape this would have formed from. Remember, you're trying to figure out which landscape would have the water flowing in this particular pattern. And the correct answer is D, which is the trellis or rectangular pattern. hopefully you got that correct. The last thing we'd like you to do is match up the drainage patterns 1 through 4 to the landscapes A through D on this side. Pause your video, make your choices. The correct answers here, 1 will match up with C. We have this trellis or rectangular pattern. 3 will match up with D. We have the radial pattern. 4 will match up with B. You have the plain kind of dendritic pattern. And 2 is the annular pattern. This is that sedimentary rock faulting or folding away, and you have that annular pattern. Again, hopefully you got those right. If you didn't, you want to rewatch the video or ask questions about that. But your main goal here is to be able to match these drainage patterns to the landscape region represented.